Well, everybody, it's hard to believe, but we are 1 week away from the 2024 presidential election. Months leading up to the primaries, Biden running as the Democrat nominee, switching to Kamala, all the drama, and we are finally here, about to arrive at Election Day. And today I'm going to make my final electoral map predictions. Now, let me first say this. This race is close. Now, both sides before Election Day will exude some confidence, especially on the Republican side, since there have been a slight swing towards Trump. But here's the thing you need to keep in mind. This race is close. It has a razor-thin margin, all within the margin of error in polling. So this election will go one way or the other, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. This is a tight race. Now, that being said, today, I'm going to put my foot down and make a prediction, because why not? Sometimes in politics, it's fun to get a little risky and make a prediction. So let's go to our electoral map. Now, here's the map. We have been analyzing this for months, but today I'm going to chart out what I believe will be the electoral results. Now, starting down in the South in Georgia and North Carolina. Let's start in Georgia. Now, Biden won Georgia by a tiny margin in 2020, a truly tiny margin. And traditionally, Georgia has gone to Republicans the last few cycles. It has a Republican governor, Brian Kemp, and it's surrounded by these red states. It's only those metropolitan areas like Atlanta that have kind of pushed it towards the Democrats. Looking at the polling, it does look like Trump has a small lead in Georgia, so I do anticipate that Georgia will go to Donald Trump. Now, up to North Carolina. This cycle, North Carolina has actually been a little closer than Georgia in some polls. But here's the thing. Much like Georgia, North Carolina is a traditionally Republican state. Trump actually won North Carolina in 2020, even when he lost the general election. So I do still expect, at the end of the day, North Carolina to go to Trump. Now, let's jump over to the west to Arizona and Nevada. Let's look at Arizona. This is another state that Biden won by a tiny margin in 2020. But once again, polls show Donald Trump ahead. This is also a border state, and we've seen the border as an issue that has negative effects on the Harris or on the Democrat side of the aisle, but it's a very strong issue for Donald Trump. So given the border, polling, and the historic record of Arizona, I do expect it to go to Republicans. Now, I'm actually going to leave Nevada, and we are going to go up to the Midwest, starting in Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania is probably the most important state in this election. Pennsylvania is this tipping point, and it's incredibly close. I know I've said that for every state, but if there's one state that's the most narrow margin, it's probably Pennsylvania. Now, before I make my prediction for Pennsylvania, I first want to go to Michigan and Wisconsin. Both Michigan and Wisconsin, I expect to go to Kamala Harris. These states are historically in the blue wall. Now, Trump won them in 2016, but I do truly believe that was more of an anomaly. This wave of Trumpism that really resonated with a lot of middle-class voters. I think that won over Michigan and Wisconsin at one point in time. But I think if you look at the true nature of these states, they go to Democrats. Also, Minnesota is from where Tim Walz is from, so I think he brings Midwestern appeal. So I expect Michigan and Wisconsin to go to the Democrats. Now back to Pennsylvania, which I just introduced. If you look at the electoral map, Harris is at 251 to Trump at 262. Pennsylvania is 19 electoral votes. If Harris wins Pennsylvania in this scenario, she wins everything. And I believe Harris will win Pennsylvania. Let me explain. Trump lost the 2020 election. What has happened since 2020? A few things. The nominee for the Democrats, I think, is a stronger candidate. 2024 Kamala Harris, I think, is a better candidate than 2020 Biden. Trump has gotten older. And also, as we look across the nation, voters just don't like Donald Trump. We've seen this in election after election. He has his base, but when you look at those voters in the middle, they just don't like him. And the more voters in the middle hear Trump speak, the less and less they like him. And guess what happens as we get closer and closer to Election Day? Trump's voice is amplified. I believe in Pennsylvania, it's going to be an incredibly tight margin. But I believe that Kamala Harris will win Pennsylvania. And if that's the case, it doesn't matter where Nevada goes. Trump can win Nevada. But Harris still hits that 270 electoral mark. If I had to make my prediction, I believe Kamala Harris will be the next president of the United States. That being said, let's go back to how I started this video. This is a tight race. Polls have actually shown a small increase for Donald Trump these past few weeks. So in some ways, many would make the prediction of Trump. I disagree. Looking at more factors, so when we look at Alan Lichtman and his keys, when we look at the actual state of the nation, I believe this pushes the election towards Kamala Harris. Thank you for watching. It has been an honor to cover the 2024 election throughout this whole season, from the primary to the general election. I hope you've enjoyed my commentary and my analysis. I'm Jonathan Lovegrove, and I'll see you later.